Hey everybody, welcome back. It's Business, and if you're confused about what's going on here right now, don't worry about it. I fucked up bad. I put that episode 41 of Ships and Giggles. I actually made that in February, just before Valentine's Day, and I never uploaded it. And I had to, I finished this video, which I thought was episode 41. Now it's episode 42. How to go through this. And I'm having to redo the audio for this. I had to edit, basically upload not upload, but get the video into my editor here and cut it up a bit and change a few things and add subtitles just so people are aware that it was actually from 4 months ago. And whoops. So I've been super busy. I've had no free time to do videos. I do plan on having a ship review coming up here within the next week, and also work in progress stuff going on. So there's gonna be a lot of footage on that because there's a shit ton of things in the work in progress queue, and a lot of that is destroyers. So because of that, things are just going to be a little wonky here. I mean, they have been wonky because, my last video was an April Fool's video, so that's cool. But, which I hope you guys enjoyed. And apparently people just took that shit way too seriously, and I don't know why. It's April Fool's, man. But, part of the reason why I wanted to redo this anyways is because I, honestly, was just too negative with the first version of this audio. I discussed the CV rework a lot, and you can hear it in my voice in the first, the previous video, the episode 41, where I'm full of hope. Misguided as it may be, I was full of hope, and I have ultimately come to a conclusion that the CV rework is a failure. It's, in the sense of what Wargaming wanted out of it, it's a success, and by that I mean it's accessible. It is a more engaging type of gameplay, despite the limitations on what you're able to do as a player when you're in a carrier. But when it comes down to it, the match quality has suffered immensely. And it's not to say that it was in a great place before the CV rework, but my god, man. I'd rather be dev-struck and move on to the next goddamn match as opposed to just being harassed over and over and over and not being able to do a goddamn thing about these carrier planes that are just gonna fly right back and come right back with a new set that I can't do shit about, with everything on cooldown for my healing party or damage control. It's shit gameplay. I don't know how else to describe it. It's fucking horrendous to play against these players that cannot be punished until you find them. Because the only way to punish anybody in this game is to fucking kill them. That's all you can do. So there's no way to have carriers implemented into any game, and make it fair for the other team, or for the other players, and make it a reasonable experience for those involved. And there's no way that Buffalo or Baltimore, whatever the hell, I have no idea how he didn't kill me there. But hey, makes for good clips. So and I just think that, gosh, there's so much hand-holding with the carriers. There really is. They've put all this work into it, and I don't blame them for wanting to see it through. But the fact of the matter is, rock, paper, scissors type of balance, which is what this game is centered around, has 3 components. This game has 4 components, and the carriers are the odd man out. So every other ship has to risk something. And now there's no real risk whatsoever for carriers because they have, quote unquote, and I say this with a little bit of sarcasm, and also because technically it's true as much as it is untrue, they have unlimited planes. It's time-based, basically. So you lose all your planes, well, you're going to have to wait 5-10 minutes to get all your planes back. Alright, well, the match is probably over by then, or you're going to be sunk or something, I don't know. So there's, I think people really overblow the unlimited plane aspect of things way too much. I mean, yes, it's true, but it's as untrue as it is true, if that makes any sense. It just depends. So regardless though, having to deal with Oh, and here's the thing too. It's like especially if you're playing these, playing against higher tier carriers, the tier 10s, they don't hit lightly. I mean, I've had a 44k salvo from AP bombs dropped on my ass. Oh wait, no, wait. Oh, that was in 2 attacks. The first one was 28,500 or something like that from a Haku in my Kremlin, and then followed it up with another a few citadels, and I lost nearly half my health on just two drops from an AP bomber. That's awesome. That's really cool. And you know what came after that? A complete set of AP bombers again. Yeah. So, if like people want to say, oh, but they don't hit as hard. Bull fucking shit. Play against good tier 10 players, you're gonna get hit really hard. The Audacious can drop for 15, 20 plus K with its HE bombers. Hell, the rockets can do. Actually, I think the last time I played, just the previous time I played Warships against an Audacious, I had a 13 or 14k rocket attack on my battleship. I can't remember which one it was, but anyhow, I think it was the Slava, maybe. But it just, oh god, this is so frustrating. It's totally a step in the wrong direction. 1 step forward and probably 3 back in terms of what they could have done with this. And I think a big part of it is that anti-aircraft armament just does not feel like it's worth a shit. Now that thanks to April, Little White Mouse, her research on it shows that the goddamn AA guns aren't even loaded until something flies into your AA bubble. Like, you gotta be kidding me, man. What? Like, why are we still holding on to this idea that CVs can be anything other than a fucking shit show for this game? Why? It's a disaster for game balance. There's no way you can incorporate carriers which by design are meant to be as inherently unbalanced as possible, risking as little as possible for maximum results, which, hey, yay, Germans are happy, that's efficient. It's just, you can't do this. They don't make sense in a fucking multiplayer game. They don't make sense in this game. It doesn't fucking work. There you go. And I know the whole idea is to keep them in there because, I mean, certainly there's money involved, and certainly there's numbers and all this other stuff, and it does change the game when we don't have carriers, but that's cool. Alright, if you're gonna have carriers in games, leave it at 1. Holy shit, why do we even have to have the risk of having 2 carriers in these mid-tier or lower-tier games? That is absurd. That shit needs to go. It was never good before. It will never be a good idea. And it's because it always comes down to spotting and how powerful spotting is and how little people understand the importance of spotting. Because I can guarantee you that whenever the enemy carrier is going after your DDs, your carrier is sending his planes into a hornet's nest against 2 Des Moines and a Kremlin that's backed up by a Minotaur, and he's losing all of his planes almost fucking instantly. But their carrier is just playing like a goddamn pro. I mean, he's obviously esports material, and he's gonna win the CS:GO championship award or whatever by himself playing this game against CS:GO guys, because he's that fucking good. He's not even playing the same game and he still beats them. That's ridiculous. That's the problem here, is that there's still such a huge skill discrepancy. And I would say that it matters even more now because of the way the AA is, whether or not there is actually skill parity between the carriers. So it makes at least as big of an impact as it did before the CV rework when you have a shit carrier versus a good carrier. It makes a huge difference. These carriers are not weak. They harass, yes, but they are not weak in the slightest. They control the game just as much as they did before, and it's exactly the same thing as before, except less dev strikes and more control. Depending on how you look at it, depending on the situation. It's just dumb. Like I said, I think it's a complete failure. in the respect of the actual game itself in terms of match quality, the enjoyment factor. It's not there. It's not there at all when it comes to carriers. And I don't know what to suggest to wargaming other than, holy shit, I just rather not play with carriers in any way, shape, or form. And I can't imagine that the public relations is doing very well with this season of ranked being tier 10 again, and also having carriers involved too. There's no way that did them any favors. But moving on from that though, because I really don't want to take up any more of this video with talk of carriers. Unfortunately, it's going to be another rather heavy topic, and that's the work in progress ships, as far as things like the Smolensk, the Colbert, the Summers, the Slava. If you're not familiar with these ships, I will be doing, hopefully be doing videos of these soon. It's just going to take time. Yeah, anyhow. I think something that a lot of people have been having a lot of issues with as well is the combination of these factors combining at the same time, where there seems to be a really heavy push towards this high tier premium coal, steel, whatever free XP ships, which I don't have a problem with these ships being offered for other currencies. It's that it seems like the rest of the game has been kind of forgotten, and you know, where's the balance for, like, why aren't we hearing more about tier 4 and 5 ships getting kind of rebalanced, or you know, the overperformers, they're kind of getting thrown back into check. Why aren't we hearing more about tier 6 and 7 ships? It's always tier 8, tier 9, tier 10, tier 9, tier 10, tier 10, 10, 10, 10. It's always about that, and it's fucking boring. Like, there's a lot of tier 10 ships that I enjoy playing, but I fucking despise the tier 10 game that's being played, if that makes any sense. So it's just, there's so much passivity, there's so little movement. You have to basically throw your ship away like I'm doing here in order to win a flank. And by the way, two things. One, you're gonna watch this salvo come in right there at the top of the screen, and kapow, got a detonation. So that whole flank is cleared. We're up by 300 points and we still lost. Yeah. So, for all the good that you can do, it's still 1v23 in this game, so yeah, just bear that in mind. But all of this happening with the CV rework and the seemingly stubborn approach that wargaming has been taking in, and I'm not saying that's the case, I'm simply saying that's what it feels like. Whether they are or they're not being stubborn is going to be up to an individual's interpretation, and I can understand why people would think that as well, but that's simply to say that it's like, no, this is going to be the way it is, and you guys just have to deal with it. Well, then people are going to stop playing the game. I don't give a shit what numbers you put up saying this or that about player retention. I'm not playing the game anymore. I'm not playing it as much as I used to, so on and so forth. I mean, these are the amount of replies, comments, and things like that I read all the time in stream or on you know, YouTube comments or the private messages and stuff. Be like, hey, I haven't played the game since the CV rework, blah blah blah, but I still, you know, enjoy watching the videos, or you know, whatever the case is, and that's awesome. There's a lot of games that I actually don't play that I watch YouTube videos and streams for, and I really enjoy it. It's kind of just nice to get into something else, you know. But in this case, it's pretty indicative that not all is well, and it doesn't matter what wargaming says. You know, if, oh well, these numbers are up, it sure as hell doesn't feel like that. It sure as hell doesn't feel like the game is any better after the rework, and so on and so forth. And the thing that makes it worse is when there's such a heavy focus on these super premiums, or whatever you want to call them, at the high tier. And when you look at ships like the Colbert, which is fucking unbalanced as hell, completely unbalanced, and there's no reason we need a goddamn turbo Atlanta at tier 10 in any way, shape, or form, which is funny because I actually think the Smolensk can find its way into the game. It just needs some tweaking. There's reasons for that though. But anyhow, you know, I think it develops a lot of distrust, and I think that wargaming, they've done a lot of good, and unfortunately it's been kind of metered out by the stuff that's super frustrating and bad. You know, they got to be careful about how they're going forward here, because I think it's a pretty damn slippery slope of mediocrity, and we're right there at that cusp. The push towards getting people to tier 10, and I don't know the retention number, so I can't comment on, you know, whether or not, if people get to tier 10 faster, are they going to stay in the game for longer? I don't know that, and I'm sure there's some metric that wargaming keeps track of to be able to show that sort of thing. I'm almost certain of it. I'd be shocked if they didn't, but you know, on my alternate account I got to tier 10 in the curve first in 292 matches, and that was like the majority of that was not in the division. The majority of that was without you know, these camos that they have nowadays, these flags that they have nowadays. I didn't have any of that shit, and I can guarantee you I can get there in 150 games or less, and that blows my fucking mind. And now that you can right click somebody's name after the game's over and check their profile, and you see somebody with 792 games with 37 premiums and like 9 or 10 tier 10s, I don't understand it. I don't understand how that can be good for the game, and you know, the future of the game, because I'm not sure if you guys have realized this, but there's very little else that this game can add in terms of ships. It should be, and it should have been, the focus for the last 2 years of getting new game modes in to change how we play the ships that we love to play, because that would be the most compelling thing that we can do, as opposed to introducing new ships, more power creep. The Summers, with 3x4 16.5 kilometer torps, so it has 2 extra torps in the gearing, and it has effectively the same reload. Okay, and it has a more usable setup. Instead of 2x5, it's 3x4. So you can dump 2 torque bracks and hold on to the third one just in case. That's way better than the gearing. And sure, it shoots slower, but it has an extra turret, so it has better alpha damage, and ultimately it's gonna most likely end up being the same thing anyways. So what the hell, what is somebody in the gearing, like, who really enjoys the gearing, what are they supposed to do? The only thing that ship has over the Summers is defensive fire. Whoop-de-fucking-do. Be like, well, why would you play that at all when a ship like the Grozhevoy exists, which has phenomenal anti-air, and it has a heal, and it has solid torps, and fantastic guns with a very easy to use arc, so on and so forth. I mean, there's just all these things. This you know, this idea that we can only have ships that are interesting to play if we give them something new, and that hasn't been seen before, is ridiculous. The Russian battleships are the closest they've been to implementing a new ship line that actually makes sense. The problem is, it still sits here in the bow forward meta, with the bow armor being extreme and the side armor actually being extreme, but the citadel is raised and right on the waterline there. It's frustrating because it should be inverse of that. We need to at least try out some ships, battleships, some brawlers that are meant to be broadside, where they have like just crazy awesome armor, they have shit like, or just vulnerable bow armor. And I know that's been tried before, and people whined and complained. Well, unfortunately, like, we can't keep going forward with this fucking boring ass bow forward gameplay. It sucks. And guess what? The carriers don't, just like artillery in World of Tanks, they don't promote movement. They promote sitting there doing jack shit. And, you know, the more tier 9 and 10 ships that we have that are focused around this thing, like the Jean Bart with its, you know, 2 turrets up front and fucking main battery reload booster, which is the most ridiculous consumable they've ever introduced in this game. You don't have to give anything up for it, you just get it. You don't have to even consider consequences like If you're in a Yagumo, do you take smoke or do you take torpedo reload booster? You have to make a choice there. Do I take defensive fire on my whatever cruiser, or do I take hydro? You have to make a choice. But not with that shit, because it's quote-unquote protected with a national flavor. Come on, man. And then they don't even bother to balance the goddamn ships after they introduce that anyways. Like, what has the Henry had done to it since they introduced that? It's only become more powerful. But none of the other ships have? Like, come on. Oh, God. So, yes, I'm frustrated with the direction the game's going. I want to see different ways of playing. And don't get me wrong, that's one of the hardest things to do here, so I will give all the credit I can to Wargaming and their development team here with Lesta Studios about trying to implement new game modes. They almost had it there with Arms Race, and I think there is a chance for something to happen there potentially. But introducing new game modes, I mean, people don't even understand standard battle, 2 goddamn caps, and they still can't figure that shit out. I understand the limitations of introducing a new game mode, trust me. We see it all the time when we play. We're like, there's no way I can win without killing everybody. Yes, there is, by not shooting and not being detected and thus getting killed yourself. Just, I mean, my god, there's some brain dead people in this game. Even after 10, 20,000 games, they just do not understand the most basic aspects of it. But yeah, I don't know. It's frustrating. I'm frustrated. I know a lot of you guys are frustrated too, and I can respect that. And I would really, I'm not really sure. Sorry, I'm jumbling a lot of different thoughts right now. I'm not really sure if Wargaming respects that the player base is as frustrated as it is. There are definitely good things that they've done this year, for that matter. But wow, they've really fucked up a lot. And I just hope there's a light at the end of the tunnel here, and we get to see it soon, and there's some significant changes coming up that validate our time and our interest and our love in this game. Because as it stands right now, I don't see that happening soon. So we'll end with that, and yeah, good match there. But thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed 2 episodes of Ships and Giggles. I'll see you back here next time. Take care, folks.